Okay, thanks. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this public decision session for Executive Member for Economy and Transport. My name is Councillor Pete Kilbane. This is the first such decision session that we've undertaken in this area under the new Labour administration within the council. So to get us underway, also welcome Peter and Durga, who are here on work experience, in case anybody else is wondering. Okay, thanks. Sorry for the short break. Saying, unless I hear anybody shout out as to the inaccuracy of the minutes from the decision sessions for transport on the 14th and 21st of March, and for that for economy and strategic planning also on the 21st of March, I will take them as read as an accurate. Okay, thank you. We move now to public participation, and our first public participant today is Councillor Jane Burton, who is joining us remotely to talk about the Bishopthorpe Road Respark experimental TRO.
characteristics which really haven't been begun to be addressed by this EQIA. For example, those in coercive relationships, most usually women, will often use cash to avoid surveillance of their location from their bank card use by abusive partners. And then a light bulb moment. Councillor Kilbane, you will no doubt recall the protracted discussions at Planning Committee B on 19th of October last year regarding the planned changes to Union Terrace car park to accommodate an EV hyperhub. There we heard from officers about, to quote Councillor Melly, the hypothetical barrier that doesn't actually exist. This is what this is really about, switching from pay and display to pay on exit. If so, restoring barriers to car parks also opens up a whole new can of worms regarding accessibility of pedestrian movement. In conclusion, transparency is missing here. I would also suggest that asking voluntary members of the Access Forum to write equalities impact assessments is not our job. Be very wary of consultation fatigue. This forum, still in its infancy, cannot afford further disengagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Flick. We will take all of those issues into consideration today. If you could also email your speech to the author of the report, Graham Titchener, whose email address is on the report, that would be really useful. Thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Jane Burton. Jane, can you hear me?
I can indeed, yes.
Marvellous.
Apologies for being having difficulties getting in.
No problem at all. Jane, you have 3 minutes and Margot will give you a 30-second warning towards the end. So speaking on the Bishopthorpe Road, Respark Experimental TRO, over to you, Councillor Burton.
Thank you very much. So yesterday we visited the part of Bishopthorpe Road, a nearby area that has been under the experimental temporary parking order, and spoke to about half the residents there. Their feedback was very positive, and the new trial scheme has made a positive impact on the lives of the residents and their level of enjoyment. Some examples of this were using the nearby bus stop was much easier. Previously, they'd had to go to the next bus stop to get on, as the bus couldn't stop because so many cars were parked in the way of the bus stop. And manoeuvring with a buggy was also easier, as there were fewer cars to negotiate. No one mentioned any problems finding a parking space, and they were generally all very happy. There were some issues, and the only issues picked up were the lack of clear signage on Balmoral Terrace and needing bigger signs on Butcher Terrace to make it clear that the permit parking extends to these areas. Also, some residents mentioned the needs and some the preference for paper permits for those who are not digitally connected or digitally savvy, and as some have encountered problems registering for digi permits online when the council system was not working. So that caused them quite a bit of anxiety. There had been a very positive response to people being able to get hold of the old style paper permits again and use these. The lack of visible paper permits has made it difficult for some to recognise whether cars are parked illegally or not. And some of the people we spoke to would prefer to see more enforcement done for the parking, especially when there are special events nearby, for instance, at the Knavesmire. So that's my report on the experimental temporary parking order.
Thank you, Councillor Burton, and we will sure to reference those points when we come to that item on the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have actions arising from the minutes. Mr. Andy de Gorn. Thank you, Mr. de Gorn. I'm sure you're familiar with the script. You have 3 minutes, and Margaret will give you a 30-second warning.
Thank you. Well, firstly, I should congratulate Councillor Kilbane taking on the poison chalice of York's transport policy alongside being deputy leader. I'm sure you're aware your first 100 days is ticking past, and a challenging transport plan to deliver climate strategy needs to be unveiled before the honeymoon fades. It's noticeable that you have minutes of 2 meetings to approve just a week apart in March. It's after an interval of 4 months We have yet to see the promised post-election consultation on our draft cycling and walking strategy, which was referred to in March 14th minutes. And this is despite the pleadings at both meetings from Kate Revillius that we should get on with implementing the draft schemes within it. Maybe this is, maybe there is progress behind the scenes. I was surprised to spot a director decision only last week to move forward on adopting the optional powers for City of York to enforce moving traffic offences such as banned turns and blocked junctions. However, not in relation to Lendl, as was originally agreed, but at Micklegate Bar. Laudable action, I'm sure, but not quite sure why that's not being made as a public part of the proceedings today. I also note the late item relating to New Lane in Acomb, after over 12 months in the pipeline, is recommending ineffective signing, but no progress report on the 12 recommendations in the minutes to tackle road safety around Acomb School. I hope you will be pressing for this to be on the forward plan shortly. I'm sure you'll welcome a significant £1 million active travel funding officers secured for Jubilee Terrace Riverside Path upgrade, despite their pessimism in the minutes. And then there is also, as has been referred to just now by another speaker, the need for a more user-friendly digital Respark scheme, which I hope you are able to bring forward. Finally, I would urge you to endorse the position which I took on the hospital field cycle scheme, that its scope needs to be joined up approach to ensure advanced green phase for safe cycle movements across the busy Fulford Road to create a continuous cycle route from Millennium Bridge and New Walk to the university. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gorn. I will resist the expected retort and just ask instead if you could email your questions into me and we will endeavour to answer them. Thank you. Okay, next up we have Councillor Callum Taylor, who is speaking on the New Lane Acomb review of the existing 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. Councillor Taylor, I'm sure you're also familiar with the script, but you have 3 minutes and Margot will give you a 30-second warning. Thank you.
Thank you. As with most transport problems, no solution's perfect. There are always pros and cons, and it comes down to what the decision maker puts more weight on. For this problem, the need for speed calming measures on New Lane, the option officers are sadly recommended you approve is a mere information measure. 8 more signs for reckless drivers to ignore like they do the rest. 4 years for that. When 124 residents, mostly on New Lane, signed our petition, I doubt they had in mind just sticking up more signs. If the backstop is, let's do signs now and review how things are going later on, I don't think that's good enough given how much time has already passed and the opportunity on offer today with the other options. Option 1 being speed bumps, option 2 speed bumps plus a really helpful crossing point will deliver speed calming, the latter particularly. Crucially, they reduce how much the choice to drive recklessly is solely down to the driver to make at everyone else's risk. If officers tell you the other options are inappropriate or unaffordable, they should never have put them forward. Consulting on the unobtainable is not on. If officers do what they've done in the report and distort residents' feedback to a quite poor consultation, then I refer to the email sent to you by Councillor Steels-Walshaw at the weekend. We're uncomfortable with how this has been framed. The same weight is given to opinions already addressed by the council's own hard evidence. The same weight is given to disliking how as yet unseen speed bumps will look as real concerns for people's safety. 2 views in support of options 1 and 2 are classed as one submission. Some residents say they didn't even receive a consultation letter. If a view is that we need more imaginative proposals, maybe, but we should already have the best of what's possible here now, not a warm-up act. And if we haven't, it raises bigger questions for outside this meeting. If another view is that we need a strategy for the whole picture, then while that's agreeable, it's easy to say with nothing else on the table. Where does that leave New Lane? Likely waiting more years for that work to be done with no guarantees it won't be watered down by professional apologists for reckless driving. And then when it is done, we'll again have to campaign to implement whatever that work says should be done. New Lane has been in the long grass long enough already. If pushed to, I would say that such a strategic approach is already taking place, but by Holgate Ward councillors and residents. Now, whether it's New Lane, Acomb Road, Hamilton Drive, Holgate Road, Moorgate, Grantham Drive, Poppleton Road, Carr Lane. We've been pushing to make these key routes for our ward safer for years. And the thing that we've always missed is the council helping and saying, yes, we agree. We can't do it all at once, but we'll do at least one useful thing over there and work our way around to the rest.
5 seconds.
30, sorry. We can't wait an open-ended amount of time for all of our problem roads to maybe, possibly one day get done. Sometimes you've just got to start. If you want to calm speeding on New Lane to make it safer for everybody, then instead of the mere information measure that's recommended, it is option 2, speed bumps plus a safer crossing point that will offer the most helpful spend of public money. Option 1 is second best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do you mind if I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
How do we account for the disparity between obviously over 100 residents, 124 residents who are concerned about this and signed a petition, and only 7 responses in the consultation? Any ideas?
Well, not everyone's received the consultation letter, so I'm told. That's one thing I'd say. The other thing I'd say is I think it's sadly quite common for a mix of local and quite macro reasons. Participation in formal processes isn't what it should be in this country. I think there's an 11% return on the letters that were sent out. You know, I mean, it's not great, but there's been probably far worse returns on council consultations. But again, my main concern is how the responses have been interpreted and presented.
Okay.
The comments are actually far more nuanced. And as I say, certain things have been given weight, the same weight as quite solid and relevant concerns that really shouldn't be, such as opinions on what a speed bump might look like, that we don't even know what the design for that would be. So I don't see how that carries weight. Or people saying, I've lived here for 40 years and I've never known this to be an issue. That doesn't really matter when we have evidence to suggest that there is a speeding issue.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks for that. Okay, thanks, Councillor Taylor. Next up, speaking on the same issue, so New Lane Acomb review of existing 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. We have Chrissy Winspear. Oh, and actually, to save me saying this every time, if you can send me through the speeches or through to the author of the report, that would be really useful. Thanks. So, Chrissy, you've heard me say it a few times now, so I think you can guess what I'm going to say. You're very welcome, and you have 3 minutes, and you'll get a warning with 30 seconds to go. Thank you.
Right, good morning. My name's Chrissy Winspear and I've lived in New Lane for 37 years as secretary of the Holgate Working Men's Club and as a resident of number 33. I have campaigned for traffic calming on New Lane for several years. The last reply to a letter I wrote to the council told me that they would provide a speed gun if I would like to sit at the curbside and clock the cars going past. Not my job. There are only 2 20-mile-per-hour signs in existence, both of which are no bigger than a T-plate. The 30-mile-per-hour signs at each end of the street are at least 3 times larger. The existing signage is not adhered to, so I don't see what difference any more will make. I propose that a large T-shaped speed hump be placed from Hill Street right across New Lane, similar to those down Grantham Drive at the junctions of Howard Hill Close and St Swithin's Walk, and preferably with double yellow lines to prevent people parking on the corners of what is virtually a blind spot. In addition, either larger 20-mile-per-hour signage or a light-up sign flashing 20 mile an hour and please slow down. There's one of those on Thanet Road near the Honeysuckle House. The latter to be placed near the New Lane entrance park gates. I don't think a localised narrowing of the carriageway to a single lane is going to help. It will only exacerbate the problem with parking for residents, as not only park users, but school children's parents and chapel goers all use our street, which brings me to my last point, which is no one except the bowlers who use the park seem to know of the existence of a car park, as it's not signposted anywhere. Perhaps this can also be looked into. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chrissy. And again, if you could email that speech to us, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks. And lastly, I believe, but by no means least, we have Rebecca Bird speaking on the same issue, the new lane Acomb review of the existing 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Okay, Rebecca, do you know the script by now? So you'll give you 3 minutes with a warning at 30 seconds. Over to you. Thanks.
Okay, I'd like to thank Callum for actually bringing this to my attention, because at no point have we received any consultation with regards to calming measures. The only way I've heard about this is through word of mouth from either parents at Acomb School where my children attend, or from Callum himself. I actually live smack bang in the middle of New Lane. And I have to say that the signs are pointless. They are absolutely pointless. People who will pay attention to the signs already do, and the people who don't, who pass my house at insane speed. The only reason that speeding is not an issue the full length of New Lane is because of the parked cars beyond my house, and they are forced to slow down and enter a chicane to get through to the rest of the road. I have 2 small children, they're 6 and 8. They would like to be able to play in the park that is across from my house, but the idea of letting them cross that road is terrifying. These cars go down so fast and they do not care. They need to be forced to slow down. When Callum asked me to speak, he said he'd like to have someone with skin in the game. I want my kids to be safe. They need to have skin in the game. They need to be worried about their cars, because that is all they care about. I'm sorry, but more information is useless. It would be great if the council provided information to all residents and actually make sure that they got the information. Because if it hadn't been for Callum, I wouldn't be here telling you that something else needs to be done than saying, oh, please be careful, because they do not care. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And can I ask if you can also let us have your address, not in part as part of the public meeting, so that we can be sure about whereabouts you live. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. All of those views, very useful views, will be taken into consideration when we get to each agenda item, which brings us to the first item on the agenda, which is number 4. Sorry, the first substantive item, which is number 4, Bishopthorpe Road, Respark Experimental TRO. So, who's taking the report on this one?
I'll let Darren introduce the full report, but obviously this has been an experimental traffic regulation, as you've heard from Councillor Burton, which has been pretty well received. You can only have experimental traffic regulation orders for a certain period of time before you need to make them permanent. So this is the report to make it permanent. Darren, do you want to?
Good morning. As the report states, the initial experiment order came out at the back of the extension of the residents parking zone in the area. Residents of this section of Bishopthorpe Road were concerned that any reduction in their parking would leave them with a lack of ability to park. So the experiment order was progressed to see how their parking habits would change if it was just restricted to the residents with concerns about pavement parking along this stretch of road. We got fairly limited response to the consultation, which is probably echoed by Councillor Burton's comments that everyone was happy with it. So you don't tend to get the same response rate if there's a positive feeling. The main concern, though, from that section was from the doctor's surgery on the corner about concerns about their access. The report's proposing that we open up the zone to allow the doctors access and just make the order as it has been proposed. Doesn't seem, and also a review of the signage in the area, as Councillor Burton commented about the issues at Butcher and Terrace and Balmoral Terrace.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, James, and thanks to the ward councillors for knocking on the doors and asking people what they thought of it. But then I suppose, given that they are also my ward councillors, I suppose I would say that, wouldn't I? But well done to them for doing that. Yeah, I'm happy to approve the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 as listed in the report. And in particular, I think what has been raised a number of times separately is the signage in areas where that are popular with the public. So down by Millennium Bridge, for example. So if we can review that signage and make sure that there are adequate signs that are large enough for people to be able to see, because there has been low-level violence, shall we say, in terms of parking in that area recently reported to me. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen and that everybody's well informed of who can and who can't park in that area, as well as on Balmoral Terrace. That would be great if we can do that going forward. That'd be good. The other issues that Councillor Burton raised are really to do with the Respark system that I think we'll be looking at separately to this decision session in terms of how that is working. Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda, we move to the consultation to propose the removal of cash payments from the parking estate. I think for this one, is it over to you, Graham?
It is indeed. No, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So the report in front of you is basically following on from the budget decision of 2021 to explore the parking estate going cashless. This is primarily linked back to the 2014 administration's digital strategy to take cash out of the building, essentially out of the council, ultimately. So this is basically following kind of partly that suit. As Mr. Williams rightfully mentioned in here, the reports, apologies for any confusion in that matter. This has a number of connotations that and dependencies that links from this particular decision. A number of our machines, in fact, well over 60% of our machines are cash only, about 25 years old. So we do need to go out and procure new machines. Decision whether to go cashless or not, it impacts on those machines, whether it's pay and exit or pay and display, etc. Pay and display also now covers a number of things, not actually even ticketless machines as well, and the machines themselves are more like iPads these days as well, depending on what's out there. But financially, in the report, we've seen year on year, and this is across the country, not just York here, but cash use drastically going down, averaging 14% and now down to 12% in this last financial year, just gone 2022 to 23. There's other items as well, reason why we're pushing this forward, such as theft and damage of machines from theft, the cost around collecting and the checking of cash, circa £90,000 for that, upwards about £25,000 per annum for the machines, of the cash machines, given the mechanisms in there, such as the coin collectors and the cash collectors that's in there as well. So essentially this report is just to simply take it forward to consultation to see what we think about it. The question will be essentially is we're looking to go cashless. What are the issues against that? And not only just relying on the council consultation, but as it said in the report as well, we're going through the York Access scheme where we're not looking for that group to write an EIA. It's simply to inform the current one that's out there that was written last year. So that is a basis that we'll bring back to a future decision report for yourself to make a decision on that, but an informed decision about if and when and how we go cashless going forward.
Okay, that's great. James, so you're about to come in?
No, I think all I was going to say is obviously as Graham's outlined, it relates back to a budget decision of the previous administration. That saving has been taken with a commitment to go cashless. I think as we've heard from public speakers, there are issues with going cashless, and indeed it's received national media coverage to make sure that you do that in the right way so that you've got as many other options as possible, whether that's contactless, whether that's the sort of pay in shop options that are also available. So the consultation is to make sure we do it in the most sensible way possible.
Okay, and thank you, James. And I just want to stress really that this is a consultation. It's not a foregone conclusion. There is a very clear desire on the part of the officers to go cashless, which stems from a budget decision that was made by the previous administration. So that is the direction of travel that they were set for this report. And that's why the report has appeared in the format that it is. But we are opening a genuine consultation, taking on board what Flick Williams was saying about consultation fatigue. We have kind of relied on volunteers from the voluntary from the disabled community a bit too much to try and correct our actions in the past. We need to make sure that we get this right as a council from the start. We are committed to being an inclusive and equitable council, so we will need to make sure that everybody is included in access to the city centre, and we can't be erecting barriers to that access, but we do need to make some savings, and we do need to make efficiencies as we go to the new system of operating. We need to be able to make sure that we include everybody as we do that. So we need to come up with solutions, and if that solution ends up being that we have to keep some cashless, some cash parking, then that could well be the outcome of the consultation. So I just want to be very clear that this consultation is not a foregone conclusion, and we are just from this administration's point of view at the very start of it, at the same time as we are trying to free up the city centre so that everybody can access it. We don't want to be erecting any more barriers now, and I'm indebted to the public speaker for actually raising some issues that I hadn't previously thought of, to do with such, for example, pay on exit and the barriers literally that can present to blue badge holders, and we need to take all those things into account as we go through the consultation period. Okay. So I am happy to approve the recommendation to move forward to consult with members of the public about moving to cashless payment methods and what pros and cons of that and what that will entail. Is that okay? Thank you. So moving on, we have the next agenda item, which is New Lane Acomb. Review of the existing 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. And who's going to start this one? James, you're going to start.
I'll just do a very quick introduction before handing over to Ben. So obviously, as you've heard from the public speakers, this has quite a bit of history in terms of petition and campaigns for speed control. Just to stress that the report is written with options that are deliverable. The officer recommendation is based on the consultation responses we've received, but those options are deliverable. We wouldn't put things in a report that we didn't think were deliverable. If you were to choose one of the options that isn't a recommendation, we would need to work with you as we review the capital programme to determine how any other options are funded. Over to Ben.
Thanks, James. Yeah, so as James has outlined, this report just details the results of the consultation exercise, which we undertook following the receipt of that petition from local residents and the completion of a feasibility study, which had already laid out those three options, which we were asked to then consult on. Consultation was done with every property that fronts onto New Lane or has a vehicle access onto there. And I personally delivered every single one of those letters. So every property did get one. The consultation with the residents on the street, as is detailed in the report, there's no clear desire for vertical traffic calming by the actual residents on the street. We consider that those measures don't offer value for money when considered alongside all those detrimental effects that they could have on those residents. So we feel that they just outweigh the positive impact for those, which is why we're recommended improved signage only. We would keep that under review. And if that's not having the desired effect, we could go for the stronger measures. And as James said, all of those measures that we did consult on are deliverable, obviously at a wide range of budgets to actually get those on street.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Can you? It's the same question as I asked Councillor Taylor. Really, what accounts for the disparity between the strength of public feeling to get 120 odd people signing a petition and only 7 people responding to our consultation?
In my opinion, the people who signed the petition, I don't know who signed the petition. They may be people who literally don't live on the street. Whenever we're doing consultation for putting measures that will affect those local residents, we would usually just go to those residents who are directly affected. The majority of the speeding problem that there is on there, which isn't significant, is on the southern section. And the majority of the responses were from people on the southern section, as they were the ones who would be impacted if we put traffic calming speed humps in. So it's a small proportion who probably would have responded to us.
Okay, thanks. I am going to approve option 3, the signage only, but I'm going to do so with quite a unsatisfactory feeling, I think would be the best way to describe it. I think that the public speakers are right. 20-mile-an-hour signs do not keep people to driving at 20 miles an hour. At best, I think they keep people to driving below 30 mile an hour. As anybody that's sat in a 20-mile-an-hour zone, driving at 20 mile an hour, watching all the traffic disappear in front of them will know. I think that's a fairly common experience for people in York. So they are far from, other than keeping people below 30, they are far from effective. However, I take on board what the officers have said. I take on board other comments from the other agencies. The reason I'm feeling a little uncomfortable is that it's not just about the people that live in the immediate vicinity. And I think we've had this before with consultations, is that because of our limited resources, we tend to consult just with the houses that are immediately next to where any building work is proposed to take place or any intervention is proposed to take place. But of course, our streets are used by the whole community, and what we do on them impacts the whole community. And in this case, the biggest impacts are on the 2 primary schools that are at either end, essentially, of New Lane, both of which have been calling for safety measures to improve cycling, walking, wheeling to school, and safety for the kids. And we heard very clearly, we've got a mum who's scared to let her kids go to the park, and that can't be a satisfactory situation to be in. My overall conclusion, though, is that the alternative measures that were proposed wouldn't have made that particularly any safer for those kids to be crossing the road. So I think what we need to do is we need to revisit the way that we are thinking about these things, and we need to genuinely prioritise active travel. We need to genuinely prioritise walking, wheeling and cycling over other forms of transport. So what I propose we do from here is we look at the capital budget especially in terms of the active travel funding that's available. We look at this area as an entire block. So we look at the 2 primary schools and we look at the New Lane and the park, which is obviously a major attractor for families and kids. And we look at what interventions we can make in that area to make it community first, to make it a place for living in first. So that's for people to walk into experience rather than for the problems that are associated with speed in traffic. So I think we'll take that one up from here. What I would like to say is, as we do that, that needs to be led by the people who are most directly affected. So that is the ward councillors, the people who live in the area and the school community. And they're the first people we need to be engaging with, rather than going off and coming up with great schemes of our own and then saying, hey, what do you think of this? We need to start engaging with those people from the start, using the funds that we've got available to genuinely change the way the place is for people to live in York. Okay, thank you. Okay, and I think I've not had any urgent business raised with me. So that will be the end of the decision-making session. Thank you all very much.